Welcome to the Photomyne Talks podcast, episode 4. We have a great show for you today with a great guest, one of Photomyne's best friends in the photo organizing world, Cathi Nelson of the Photo Managers. She's going to tell us all about the Photo Managers and herself and organizing photos and organizing people for organizing photos and all that good stuff. So without further ado, Cathi, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here, and congratulations on getting this podcast started. Always fun to be on podcasts.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. I mean, we're working out the kinks, but here we are. It's nice to have someone who's, an expert in the field of some things and has done these kind of things in the past. So we're happy to bring you on in a different context than we've had in the past. For people who might not have followed some of Photomyne's works in the past, Cathy's helped us with a ton of webinars in the past, bringing people that kind of, give more instructional things on how to how to organize your photos, whether physical or digital. But here we are to kind of have a little bit more of a general conversation. If I figure, Cathi, why don't you start and just kind of tell us about yourself and the Photo Managers?
Yeah. So I'm Cathi Nelson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers and author of 2 books, Photo Organizing Made Easy, going from overwhelmed to overjoyed. And then the business roadmap for professional photo organizers, everything you need to start and grow a thriving photo organizing business. So that leads me to the most common thing that people will say is, wow, I didn't know that was a thing, that there are actually people who organize people's photos for a living. And yes, it is. And it's an industry that I started. Really, it's been 12 years. So I always joke that we're a 12-year overnight success. But it's because it's definitely we've been at it for a long time, but we have over 700 small business owners so we're the organization that supports independent small business owners who have their own business model, but who are passionate about helping people save and tell their family stories through their photos. And the average consumer thinks they're going to get that project done, and maybe those of you obviously listening to a Photomyne podcast, I'm sure, are the reason that you are aware of Photomyne is you probably have lots of photos that you're trying to digitize and get back into your life in a way that's shared with family and friends in a meaningful way. And sometimes you might just want to throw your hands up and think, I can't get to this. And then that's where we step in, and you can actually hire somebody who would happily take over that project for you and do it for you.
That's awesome. Well, I guess maybe we'll bring it back a step a little bit. You said you've been doing this for 12 years, but where did your interest in, I guess, photos as a whole come from? It didn't happen overnight. They were just like, I'm going to not only help people organize their photos, but I'm going to help organize the people who are going to help organize people's photos.
Right. I always said I didn't wake up one morning and think, I think I'll start an association of professional photo organizers. I think, my love of photos stems back from childhood. I remember, being fascinated by the photos that were next, on the coffee table, or looking at my grandparents. And then when I got my first camera, just the joy of travel and using photos as a way to come back from my travels and show people where I'd been and things, my life experiences. And so photos were always really a big part of my life. And then when I became an adopted parent and I needed to create what's called a life book for my son, I wanted to create a book telling him how he became part of our family. I realized that I wanted to write the stories, I wanted to create a photo book with stories attached to the photos so that we could read it like a photo book kind of. This was 28 years ago, before there weren't photo books. You had to do this manually, you would print your photos and then you'd have to put them on an album page and tell a story. And so I got really involved in scrapbooking, which was in a company called Creative Memories I discovered at that time. And I taught hundreds of people how to create meaningful scrapbook photo albums. And so that process of doing that over many years helped me realize that I would do these big, what we call crop to you drop events, where I had hundreds of people, mostly women, come in with all their bags and boxes of photos and sit around a table together and make albums. And I used to think to myself, this isn't about a bunch of women cutting photos in cute little shapes. That's what the world kind of viewed it as. But I would see how people love to share their story, their photos. Here's Bobby. Look at how cute Johnny was when he was 3, or, here's a photo of my mom, or here's a photo of my grandparent. Everybody would listen, so intently to the person telling a story about photos. And it was a very strong sense of community. And but then the digital camera came along, and people started not printing their photos, but instead they'd bring in these memory cards, and they'd be like, I don't know how to get my photos from this memory card onto my computer, or how do I email photos? And so I kind of adapted I quickly became kind of like the guru in my social network of people who understood how to help with that. Until the day somebody finally said, well, what do you charge per hour to help me? And I was like, I don't charge anything. I mean, why would I? Like, you're my friend. And she was really wonderful. And she said, no, you can't. You have to let me pay you. And we argued, and I finally agreed. And I love this part of the story. This is amazing. This is how a business entrepreneur got started, right? I got to her house, and not only did she have memory cards and her kids' photos captured on her husband's Mac computer, she also pulled out the boxes of photos she had just inherited because her parents had passed away. And she was one of 4 siblings, and she was the one who said, I'll take the family photos. And she was feeling tremendous guilt because she hadn't done anything with them. And she said, Cathi, I'd love you to, can you organize? I want to create a family photo book. I want to get these digitized and then create a family storybook. And I was like, I looked at that mess and I thought, well, Maria, I can't make a photo book for you and tell your family story if with all these photos, we have to organize these photos. Ta-da! And she said, wow, I guarantee there's thousands of Marias just like me who'd pay somebody to do that for them. And that was the moment when I drove home and I thought, I wonder if that's true. And sure enough, it was true. And so that was the beginning. That's a quick story of the beginning of all of this.
Is there anything that you miss from that community, the physical nature of those crop tea drop events that you kind of don't get from the digital piece of it now?
Oh, for sure. You mean me personally as like what I want to do? I've been so busy growing this organization and doing this, but honestly, if I could go when I'm freed up to have some more time, my son's going to get married pretty soon, and I'm hopefully will the grandchildren come, so I'll suddenly become that person again. I would love to go, literally, believe it or not, print the photos, make an album, put them in an album, and then scan that digitally so that it could be created into a digital photo book. I do find something very appealing about the tactile process of touching and holding photos. I really do I'm on the computer all day long. I mean, I live on Zoom calls and things like that. It's like so many of us, right? We live in this digital world, and I'm on my phone, and I miss holding photos and looking at actual photos. And I think the world, that's kind of a film is, exploding in growth again. People are printing again. There is kind of the pendulum is kind of swinging back, I think, towards a printed concept of like holding photos. But at the same point, we need that digital backup copy of the photo. So
there's something nice about it's like photos themselves are nostalgic, but the physical nature of it is an additional nostalgic piece to it, right? That not only are you looking at these old memories that you have, with your family, your friends, vacations, what have you, but that you actually have a physical piece of media that is nostalgic in itself. Is like it's an interesting combination between the two that kind of like doubles up the levels of nostalgia that just kind of are triggered in your brain.
And that, speaking of nostalgia, there's so many studies. They're doing a lot more studies about the impact of photos on mental health and the ability, how photos can be healing. And I think especially like with what we've just been through with, and we're still in, the whole COVID world, and young kids and things like that experience, like using photos to share their story about what it's been like in lockdowns and different situations like that. I mean, there's so many elements to this. And if they're really unorganized, though, if they're just, part of your photo reel, your photo stream on your phone, or, you don't know where they are, and they're mixed up with, I always joke, like, if I'm looking at a pair of new shoes, I send my sister a quick screen, shot, hey, you like the blue or the green or whatever. And then an hour later, I could be taking a picture of my son with his, proposing to his girlfriend. I mean, and they're all just like lined up next to each other. And how do you find the photos that you care about in the midst of all the ones you don't care about?
It's very true. Well, that's what you're here to help with, right? Is exactly that thing. Are there any people within the photo managers that actually help specifically with, what you're talking about, that connection between like mental health and photos? Is that something? In fact,
it's interesting. I think that's one of our members who's in Australia is going back to school to get a counseling degree. So So when I call them our members, so these are the business owners that get hired by people and they go into their homes. And then I've created an amazing community of, because it didn't exist, everybody's learning together. I always joke, nobody showed up raising their hand and said, oh, I've been a photo organizer all my life. I mean, they usually, I say, if you love photos and you love stories, this is a great career. So when people join, they don't know, how do I know how much to charge per hour? How do I know how to do this? What kind of scanners do I need if I'm going to do digital? What if I'm an iPhone user and somebody has an Android phone? Or how do I gather everybody's multiple digital photos from, they have them in Google Photos or in Dropbox? And how do we get, so the community, all the members share their tips and information constantly through multiple ways and training that we do. But one of the biggest things then is they talk about their clients, right? When they get to know the client, it becomes very personal work. And then gifting the client back that finished project is just is an amazing experience. But there's a lot of emotion included in it.
In most cases, it's people sending out their photos to someone to organize it for them, or is it them more like working one-on-one together to kind of do it? Sitting there like, oh, these are. Marie Kondoing it essentially, right? Like, sitting there like, does this give you any sort of emotional value? No? Okay, great. Get rid of it. Like, is it that kind of sitting one-on-one, or is it more like, here's my photos, I'm going to send them to you, and then you're going to send them back to me in a way that's like organized in a way that I can then, based on my goals of organizing essentially?
It's both. And, it's depending on the client's needs. Some more and more, I think, less and less in-home side by side, especially again, COVID changed everything, right? That used to be a lot of it, because I always tell people, if I opened up my box of photos, which I will admit, I am, the shoemaker has, needs somebody to organize her photos. I would get lost in the memories immediately. Like, I would not get very far, that's just human nature. So having a partner next to you you're paying, they're going to move you along much faster. And what's wonderful, again, it's a lot of times is about telling the story. So when I used to work with clients, I'd say, tell me about this, they'd get really emotional. I said, well, here, tell me about that photo. Meanwhile, I'm finding all the doubles, blurries, scenery shots, all the ones that really don't matter, right? But today, a lot of people do it through Zoom meetings, or you do an intake form where you really ask a lot of really key questions, and then you can go out, organize the client's photos, and then, don't throw anything away, put them in a folder, maybe if you have ones you're questioning about. So there's a whole process that photo organizers go through when they're working with a client based on what is most comfortable for them.
So you talked about creating this industry that didn't exist. You kind of alluded to it. So I'm curious, like, what actually went into, not just the idea, right? The idea kind of came to you through your friend, but what was it that really went into it? Like, what was I want to know about the blood, sweat, and tears that kind of, helped you build this. Like, what it must have been, a crazy process to do it when nothing like this existed.
I joke every day, my brain always hurts. It's still a growing, changing, so when I started doing that as a business for myself, and then people, because I was connected in that scrapbooking world, I had a lot of big network all over the world kind of, and people started being intrigued, like, what's Cathi doing? Look, she's actually like charging people to do this. And because we used to make money on selling a commission on a product, right? So if a client would buy like 5 albums and pens and paper, I would get a commission on that. That's how I made my money. And when people stopped printing photos, I called it my incredibly shrinking paycheck, because suddenly, like, I wasn't getting paid, and I needed to make money to survive with my family and things. So this shifting from a product-based sales business to a service-based business model was a big shift, and nobody had done that yet. So I started helping people, and then I realized, well, I should charge for my intellectual property. I spent a lot of time figuring this out. And so what if I create a community where the people pay me and I teach them as part of the community? And that was the beginning of it. Before the internet was really that big. We used to do phone calls, like 1-800, 12 years ago, believe it or not. It was like, literally, I'd do these phone trainings. And I always feel like one of the smartest things I ever did, because I knew the power of community, I decided, I took a big risk, and I created an educational conference. Today I look back, I can't believe it was like a risk, right? I didn't know anything about conferences, but I picked Chicago because it was the middle of the country. I found like a wedding venue. It wasn't even a conference facility. And I invited different speakers, and they all said yes. And then I just put it out there, and we had like 65 people come. Now, we just had our 10th annual conference, and many of those people have been to all 10 conferences. Now our conference is huge. It's 3 days. It's all educational. We have speakers from all over the world. It's amazing. But, you know, from the blood, sweat, and tears, I think that decision to bring people together like that was a really good decision on my part. And because it's created a profession with a lot of pride. And then the profession itself, the members have created the profession along with me. Does that make sense? So, and our mission statement, our value statement is a rising tide lifts all boats. So that's my, you know, so the idea is that we're not competitive, we're collaborative, and we're not competitive. So, and there's way more people who need photo organizers than there are photo organizers, and we share with an abundance mentality. So those kind of fundamental, I think, structure within the organization has allowed really smart people. Like an example, a woman named Laura Woolsey, she's in Austin. She actually was doing a lot of scanning and work and stuff. She joined. So she had been doing it on her own and had come up with some really smart workflows. Like, how do I actually, if you get like boxes of photos from a client, you have to think there actually has to be a workflow. You can't make money if you just if you don't have a system in place. Well, she started creating some really smart workflows. She willingly shared her workflows with everybody else. So a lot of people have like adopted her workflow. So that makes sense. So kind of figuring out the need for that.
It sounds very collaborative in a way that's like, you know, in theory almost, that like various photo managers could kind of be, you know, working on the same thing. It could just be organizing physical photos or organizing digital photos, but that they have that collaborative element to it kind of makes it into something that's, I don't know, unique to them almost, in a way that's like they understand the secret between, you know, of what it takes to do these type of projects for other people and to help them.
And they have, cool. And they, another really, I think, a wise decision on my part early on too, was in a painful learning, is we all called ourselves so I called myself a personal photo organizer. I always joke the word organizing attached to an entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, really, I'm truly a visionary entrepreneur personality. So organization is not my, I didn't grow up like organizing shoes. Like if you meet residential organizers who are wonderful, a lot of them will say, oh, I was always the kid who, you know, like I was the kid who got in trouble because I was so unorganized, you know, and, but I love photos and stories. Right. So, I came up with the name because I knew with Maria in particular that I couldn't make it a family photo album without organizing the photos. I called myself a photo organizer. And then I put the word personal in front because I knew it was personal, meaningful work. I debated over, should I be a professional photo organizer or a personal photo organizer? So when these first people started modeling themselves after me, we were all calling ourselves personal photo organizers. And then I met and went with an attorney, and they cautioned me that you are creating a franchise model by doing that, and you could get in a lot of trouble if you don't like register and all. And I was like, I don't want to be a franchise. So that's why I kind of came up with the association model, where it's more like we're like a trade association almost model, where that's why I was very clear, like everybody is their own business owner. They don't report to me. I don't get a commission on their business. You run your business as you want. But I got a call early on this is the only time I've ever gotten a complaint in all these years. I'm sure there might be another coming, but at this point, somebody called and said, oh, this personal photo organizer, your employee didn't deliver what she said she was going to. And I was like, she's not my employee. So I realized, I got to be careful. So we created a certification program and a code of ethics. So to be listed on our website, to be for people to find photo or professional photo organizers, that you go to photomanagers.com and you can find a photo organizer. We have members all over the world. Not enough, but we have members everywhere. You go through a certification process where you learn best practices, you agree to our code of ethics, you submit a project where you document your whole process, and we actually check your references. The company checks to make sure that and then you have an interview with me. And at that point, you're certified. So that's another key element in terms of, as from an entrepreneurial perspective, that made a difference in giving us credibility. And that matters. The credibility matters. And, because people's photos really are important to them, and you want to make sure that the person that you hire agrees to, you know, privacy and confidentiality and all of that.
How many photo organizers do you have under the Photo Managers Hub right now?
Yeah, we have about 700, 750 under the hub. We have mostly the US, Canada. We have a growing group in the UK, Australia, a few Portugal, one person in Poland. We have like 3 people in Brazil, so it's definitely, which is why I wrote the book, because people don't know it's a thing. Like they don't realize, and it's many of our most successful members have been doing it the longest, have multiple employees. Many of them it is a legitimate, people say, can you really make money at that? Yes, we have proof of concept at this point that if you're serious about it, that there are hundreds and hundreds of people out there who will hire somebody to do this work for them. And it's, I would say it's meaningful work, right? At the end of the day, our members love doing the work, and the clients are thrilled that somebody's taking that project for them.
The real question, I guess, is how many of the 700's names do you know? I'm going to guess 694, 95.
Not quite, but I do. It's interesting. We don't have a lot of, they call it churn rate and things. We don't have much of that. I mean, we have a lot of members. I think I always say my mission, my goal was always that you only leave the photo managers if you don't want to be a photo manager, not because we didn't give you like the support and the training and the connection that you need. And so I think that's made a big difference. So I don't know all their names, but I'm actually better with story. I know a lot of if you told me a story, I'll remember a story more than I will maybe your face and name. But our members from the UK and Australia, I mean, we had 2 members from the Netherlands and 2 members from the UK and a member we had, I think, 7 different countries represented at our conference in Denver this past April. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. And we also do it virtually now. So that was another big, talk, just like changing the way that the world changes. When we always did these in-person conferences, and then 2020, we were going to be in Atlanta, and then guess what? We couldn't be in Atlanta. So we thought, well, how do you do a virtual conference? So now it was so successful. So now I do both an in-person always, and 4 weeks later, we repeat the conference completely virtually. And it works for people.
That's amazing. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So what, I guess, you've been doing this for a while now, but I guess what is it that drives you to kind of keep pushing this mission forward? You've had plenty of time under your belt, keep bringing people into the photo managers, but what is it that kind of keeps you going, that you want to keep bringing this to the table, to bring this to people?
Yeah. And it should go on long. It should have a life long after me. Honestly, it's really, when I tell people when I put my head on the pillow at night, it's the joy that I've made a difference in people's lives and starting a business that's been profitable for them and in meaningful work. I mean, I get letters. I just got one yesterday from somebody, a quote that I said that we are a people of stories and we take photos that tell the stories of our lives. And she just wrote me a beautiful note. She's been a member, thanks for all your hard work and efforts to keep the photo managers moving forward and vibrant. Job well done. I mean, I've known Cathi for a long time. It meant a lot to me. So I think the passion for me is that I serve 2 audiences. I serve entrepreneurial small business owners who are looking for meaningful work and a way to make a difference in people's lives. And this has provided that. And then I also know that the client that they're serving at the end of the day, having your photos, videos, memorabilia, it's really not about organization. It's about, to me, it's about that nostalgia, that connection to your stories that you live, that you love, that, life is hard. I mean, right. Those things should be part of it. And there's so many different facets of it. One of our members is really developing, I think, a brilliant concept where she's specifically focusing on people and their pets. That's it. She's doing amazing, beautiful photo books about your pet. She interviews these clients about their pets and gets this amazing story about why we love our pet. Do you have any pets yet, Matthew? Are you a pet guy?
No, I like animals, but I'm not a pet person. I live in too small of an apartment for anything.
Yeah. Anyway, those of us that are, cool. But I think, that's an example, right? Of, it's not just about, because some people are choosing not to have children. Some people, or maybe their kids are gone and you love your pet. So that's a perfect example too of what keeps driving me. Like, how brilliant is that I think it's a need in the marketplace. There are people that would love to have somebody care about them and their story of why they love their pet, and then turn around and create it in a way and gift it back to that person in a way that they can keep it. I think is wonderful.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the, the relationship between, pet and pet owners it's one of those, there's almost not words to describe that relationship, because it's not anything you could have with a person. but it is just as, in a lot of ways, emotional. Intimate's not the right word, but like, it's so personal, and you feel like it's, like familiar almost, or not even almost.
Yeah.
It is like, it feels
It
like a
is.
part
They
of your
love you.
family, a part of your soul, and they love you the same way.
Yeah, and we take photos of them, right? And not only is it about is pets, but say flower gardens, or again, it's because I always like to always get people to go back to why you take the photos in the first place, right? And what is it what's the purpose of the photo? And often it's capturing something you love, or a beautiful sunset, or if you're right now, it's spring here, so the people that love gardening are just delighting in getting their gardens up and running and things. So it's really about celebrating all of those parts of people's interest, and then educating people on that matters is also keeps my passion alive. I'm very passionate.
So what advice do you have for someone who is interested in photo organizing, whether personally or professionally, that maybe doesn't know where to get started, maybe doesn't know about the photo managers? They, in their mind, it's just like a thing that they do and sit with their shoe boxes at home, hoping to put them in year order, but they don't necessarily want to start. I guess let's take it as two parts almost, right? Like, where do you tell someone personally, right, who just wants to organize their own photos, and where to start, and where do you tell someone who wants to actually make a business out of it, kind of how to get started, other than looking up the photo managers?
Yeah, that's a good. So if you're looking at your own photos, that we always break it down into the number one is set a goal. Like, what is it that if you could wave a magic wand over that messy photo collection, what is it that it would look like at the end? And just like do a brain dump, like just brainstorm. I would love to have, I keep using the word photo albums, but maybe a video montage. You want all your photos stored in a safe place where family members can access them into the future. These are things that people might say. Maybe you want a heritage photo book that tells the story of your grandfather's life. Maybe not. Maybe you want, you're just tired of them being in your house, and you don't know if your kids really care, and you're getting ready to downsize, and you wonder, like, does anybody care about this stuff? So set a goal. I can guarantee you they do care about it. What they don't care about is all of it. If you can eliminate 80% of your photo clutter, this is like both digitally and analog, and get it down to 20%, then you're doing yourself and everybody else that has to look at all that into the future a great service. So the first thing I would say, if you're getting your own photos organized and thinking about it, is setting that goal, knowing what it is, and then breaking it down into what was the first goal, what's the most important goal, and start there. Because it's like eating an elephant one bite at a time. If you try to take on the whole project at once, you'll quit. It's not a weekend event. It's not, and that's the other thing. Don't think you're going to do it in a weekend. It just isn't going to happen, because it's just too much. And also you get caught up in that, that nostalgia and going down memory lane if you start looking at those photos and things like that. So hopefully and then the other part that I think has been revolutionary for a lot of people is, I always say we live in chronological date order. Like, we take photos today. For me, we're happen to be doing this on a Thursday. The weekend is coming. It's going to be Saturday, Sunday. So my photos will be dated and look in that time order. But really, what's more important sometimes is not the chronological organization, but the thematic organization, right? What are the themes of your life? So if you look at a lifetime of photos, are you a family that took photos always at birthdays, or are there celebrations that you loved, or did you go to the beach every summer? Look for all the photos that tied into those experiences, and that's what you want to focus on. Nobody cares if you put a picture from, your summer vacation of, I don't know, 1965 next to like 1973, and they're out of date order. It's much more interesting to see how the beach changed, or the people in the photos changed, and things like that, right? So hopefully that's helpful for the DIY audience.
And for the professionals?
Yeah. Now for the professionals. I mentioned I have a new book, the Business Roadmap for Professional Photo Organizers. You can get that on Amazon, or go to the photomanagers.com website. You do not have to have your own. So we talk about the three great myths, right? One is, you do not have to have your own photos organized. If I thought I couldn't do this unless my photos were organized, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with Matthew today, right? So one is, don't get caught up in that imposter syndrome, or, how could I do this? I always say, just say yes and go figure it out. And we are there to support you in helping you figure it out. But put it out there to the world. Say to your family and friends, hey, I've heard about this new business. I'm thinking of helping people organize and manage their photos. I guarantee when we used to say that 10 years ago, people go, huh? Because somebody would pay for that. Today, without question, people always say, oh my gosh, I need you. That's like the response most people get. I need you. Well, find somebody who needs you and get started. I mean, there's no reason. It's not rocket. It's not rocket science. It's not that hard, and it's meaningful work. And we can teach you and help you be successful at it.
I figured it'd be a good time for you to talk a little bit about Save Your Photos Month. And I realize we're a handful of months away, but it's one of those things that's like such an interesting concept that I'm sure a lot of people would like to know more about if they know about it a little bit, or if they don't know about it at all. It's such a fascinating idea that I thought you could elaborate on a bit.
Yeah, happy to. That was 8 years ago we started. It was in response to, there were hurricanes and tornadoes, and people were losing their photos. Of course, since then, it's only become, now there's fire. It's just horrific, right? And so the idea of Save Your Photos Month was a public relations, like a free campaign where during the month of September, we picked September. That's a high fire season, hurricane, tornado season time usually. But again, with weather extremes now, it seems like there's always a weather extreme. But to educate people about how to manage their photos. Well, people don't really get that interested in like fear factors. So we've kind of changed it over the years. And so what we do is actually, I'm doing my call for speakers. I think we've got like 20, 25 amazing speakers already lined up. They're called mini classes. So we'll present, and it's called Did You Know is the theme this year. So we have lots of people talking about like, what is metadata? How to organize your printed photos, telling all sorts of topics around Did You Know? And there are 20-minute short little educational classes, and they'll be free during the whole month of September. And then we'll also be doing panel discussions where hopefully we'll get somebody from Photomyne. We have where we'll talk about different topics, everything from, I have videographers coming on that have done some amazing stories with elderly people about, telling their stories. And you can register, you'll start looking for information where you just register, you'll start getting emails. Again, it's free, open to the public, and then we keep it live until this October, then we take it down. So it's kind of the idea is we really want people to engage with this. We'll give you an extra month, and then we come back again next year. But we started 8 years ago, and it's growing and growing in terms of awareness and popularity. And but it's a give back, a way for us to give back to the world.
It's awesome. Yeah, we're big fans of Save Your Photo Month here at Photomyne for sure. It really is a great resource for people to just dive into the ways you can save your photos. And like you said, like the Did You Know thing sounds like a great theme for this year's event. So, any last words before we wrap it up?
No, thank you. If you're I'd be happy to chat with people. You can email me at Cathi@thephotomanagers.com if you want to set up a 15, if you're serious about the business and you really want to just dig in a little deeper, I'm willing to, schedule short 15-minute calls with people if they're really serious. And because we need more photo organizers, we really do. We have more clients than we have people doing this. So I'd love to support your entrepreneurial desires and introduce you to it. So.
Well, thank you to Cathi for being here. If you are interested in hearing more from Cathi within the walls of Photomyne, keep an eye out for different webinars we have coming up over the next couple months, a couple in June, a couple in August, kind of leading into Save Your Photos Month. Of course, make sure to check out Save Your Photos Month, as well as if you're interested in her book, A Business Roadmap for Professional Photo Organizers. You can find that on Amazon, as well as her first book. But with that, I think we're going to say so long, and we'll see you on the next episode of Photomyne Talks. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it.